And another thing is, we probably wouldn't have time today here, but as you think about both the technology as well as the entire life cycle of your analytics solution, an analytics solution needs to go through as rigorous testing as I just described, as well as deployment procedures as any other production systems that you deal with, because after all, the idea is you want to use your analytics solution for business in real world. So again, probably not today, but that's another topic that we should pay attention to if we are serious about enabling your analytics. So having covered the different phases in analytics project, let's briefly take a look at this analytics enablement framework. Basically, we try to break it down to people, process, technology. In other words, organizational aspect, process and governance, technology that leads to solutions. In terms of the organization, it really boils down to three questions that you want to answer. Who can ask the relevant questions? Second, who can analyze the data to answer those questions? And third, who can act on the results? So we simply call this ask, analyze, act framework. But here is the thing. A lot of times when I talk to my clients and we talk about analytics, and I ask, so what kind of problem would you like to solve? What kind of question can I answer for you? Typical answer, 90% of the time, can I get a report that shows how many applications I got last month? Oh, what's my inventory level? Oh, what is the average wait time in my lobby? Yes, those are important questions for the business. But if we just need to answer those questions, maybe you don't quite need the full power of analytics, right? As long as you have clean data, even a simple Excel program will tell you those answers. So, whereas if the question is, I would like to help my public services, I like to help my recipients to be more successful with the A's that they get. Seemingly simple question, but let's look into it a little bit. What does it mean for the recipient to be successful? How do we measure it? If we see a certain trend or correlation between certain services they receive and certain outcomes that we observe, are we certain that's the cause and effect? Are we certain that the A's that we thought we provided are really driving the better success of the recipients? These are the kinds of interesting questions that we can actually answer. So who can ask the relevant questions? And it goes without saying, once we formulate a question, we need skilled data team that can analyze the data and find answers for you. And so that's the analyze part. But here is the interesting point. It would probably be a good idea for you to make sure, in addition to understanding the right business questions and actually analyze the data, that you as the organization knows who's going to use the results, and more importantly, are we really prepared to act on the results and change ourselves if necessary? Why is the action part important? We actually did a project a while back where we developed a predictive model that can show you the customer churns. And every business deals with churning, right? It just consumes a lot of resources, creates anxiety and heartburn in the executive rank and so on. So this predictive model in field testing, in validation step, proved over 90% accuracy, probably close to 97, 98%. So, and the model tells us, oh, customer X or recipient Y, a warning, do something, otherwise that individual is going to churn, whether it is going to another store, buy your competitor's product, or drop out of your program, possibly as a consequence experiencing some negative effects on his or her life. So that person is going to churn. Over 90% accuracy. We said, great, this will help our customer greatly. While our project sponsor was very enthusiastic and gung-ho about rolling this out, turns out the business owner of the organization was not ready or was not willing to change the business practice to take these new findings into consideration. So we put the project on hold and we are waiting for the business to approve the business process change. So lessons learned, right? Before you invest a lot of time and money, please make sure that your organization is ready to act and ready to change. And that point will also come out again in just a couple of slides. Quickly going through governance and solutions. Here the relevant questions would be governance. Do you know where to find the data? Once you find the data, are they any good in terms of quality, noises in the data, completeness of the data, and so on? Finally, once you produce the results, do you know what to do with the results? Do you know who can see the result or should see the results or where the results should go? These are all relevant governance questions that you want to ask before you embark on your analytics project. Finally, then in terms of the solution, there are a lot of tools, technologies, various architectures that we can deploy and so on. We can spend a lot of time on all those things. But it really boils down to two questions for a successful analytics project. Do we know who the users are? Do we know what they need to do with the results that we'll be producing? Why? Because it profoundly influences what technologies and architectures you want. And maybe we'll touch upon that briefly in a couple of slides again. So this is the enablement framework where rather than focusing on what's the technology, what do we have, what's the theory and so on, we try to get a good feel for what kind of questions do we need to ask and answer in order to have a successful analytics project. Now, so then assuming you have answers to those questions, here is a quick way of finding out, so how ready are we? And again, it is not focused on what do we have and what do we not have and so on, but rather really what can we do with what we have and what is happening in our organization. So for example, for the organizational aspect, if you have a team of analysts actually monitoring your business and are capable of producing new KPIs and metrics as your business environment changes, then you are in a good shape. So that you get 1 point, right? If your organization doesn't quite have those analysts, but you get regular reports that you trust, and you decide your business direction, business decisions on those reports, you probably have a pretty good data-driven culture already. So you are neutral. Whereas, hopefully there is no organization like this, but if your organization simply do not rely on reports for decision making for one reason or another, it is mostly, well, my manager says so, then your organization isn't quite data-driven in that sense. So you get -1 there, right? So you get the gist. So then from this maturity assessment framework, you get a range of -5 to 5. What's 5 plus 5 organization? That's an organization where team of analysts can actually monitor your business and define your metrics for you as your business changes. Your data team can quickly respond to that new report demand, and the data team also have easy access to well-known data, and you know exactly what to do with both the incoming data as well as the results. And you know exactly what your end users will use, what kind of tools, what kind of solutions to take advantage of those results. Oh, and by the way, you already have the executive sponsorship, so you know as necessary your business will change and respond. So that would be +5 organization as an example. Like -5 organization, you can easily imagine by reading through the table. Let us breeze through. Previously, we showed the data scientist or DBAs or your reporting team really do the heavy lifting here most of the time. So really they are the heroes of your analytics project. Nonetheless, we cannot forget the business side, right? It is always good to start with the end in mind. Once again, who are my users? What do they need to do with the results? Why? Because as you embark on an analytics project, during the first business understanding phase, one of the things you want to understand is it going to be more or less one-off exploration where as soon as you gain your insight, you can stop, you report the insight, management makes a decision, and then life goes on? Or are you trying to develop a model that you want to possibly embed in your business application or business process and use it daily or at least very frequently? That is also influenced by who are your users. Are you just trying to service your technical users, researchers, analysts? Or are you trying to serve your business users and line workers who have to deal with customers and the recipients in the lobby and so on? Right? So it determines the nature of the solution you are trying to build. And also, as just I alluded to, once you have a solution, there are many ways of deploying the solution. You can perhaps integrate it centrally in your business process. So naturally, as I work my day job, I come to an analytics solution point and I interact with the analytics solution. Or is it more normal workflow and just as necessary, I turn to a different tool and take a look at some kind of analytics solution? Why do we ask this question? Because as I mentioned, all this series of questions will ultimately influence your decision on what kind of software tools you want to have in your organization, what kind of analytics architecture you need, and so on. And in particular, this the use case and the use case will most significantly influence your choice of the presentation layer and the development tools. And of course, it could influence the data storage as well as the server architecture, but not so much. Again, what we are most sensitive to nowadays is the visualization layer, the newest, powerful, wonderful visualization tools. They live in this space. So your choice, the nature of your business problem, the nature of your business users, and the kind of solutions that they need or you like to roll out to them will profoundly impact your choice of technologies as well as architectures. But again, just talking about the architecture is a topic for another full 1 hour talk. So let's, for now, stay with this. Now, so then let us suppose you answered all the questions in the enablement framework. You've done your self-assessment, you know where you stand, and you initiated your analytics project or projects. So then the next question becomes, how do we go from trying one-off or the proof of concept or trials to actually industrializing, if you will, your analytics projects so that they become an integral part of your business. So that's what I'd like to talk briefly about in this section, operationalizing analytics. So I think I'm approaching my time, so let's fly through this. You see the traditional way of doing IT projects, right? Siloed, not well supported, blah, blah, blah. So same thing applies in analytics too. Now, operationalizing analytics. I'll let you read the quote here for yourself. But basically, it would emphasize 3 points. One is, again, having the right skill sets in your organization, integrating analytics into your business process, all under proper governance. So, how do you cross the chasm from doing one-off ad hoc analytics projects to industrializing it, operationalizing it? Time check.
7 minutes.
7 minutes, okay. Pause is a little bit of a challenge, but we can fly through the slide, and I'll try to leave about 5 minutes for Q&A and some closing comments. Great. Yes. So always, it starts with, it's perfectly okay to start with one-off projects, ad hoc analytics projects. After you try a few of them, what you like is, as an organization, you like to have analytic discovery capabilities and provisions so that as soon as there is a business problem, you can try out certain data exploration or model development exercises. So that's what we mean by analytic discovery. Go from there, analytic production and management. As I alluded to several slides ago, because we are using these wonderful visualization tools and because we are doing advanced analytics, that doesn't mean that we can go light on the good software engineering principles, such as proper documentation, version control, data management, and so on. All these things we need to make sure we have in place. Analytic production and management. Now, because all analytics results should lead to decisions or actions, otherwise there is no point of doing analytics, is there? So you want to have a proper understanding of your organization's decision management. So again, who will be the users of these analytic results? Who will be empowered to make decisions? What kind of decisions, when and where will we be making? So decision management framework, information integration. Again, is it going to be on-demand analytic solution that our workers will actually walk over to and then use it? Or is it going to be integrated into our business application so that it is a part of the automated workflow? These are the considerations that you need to make there. And then finally, information delivery. Again, it takes us back to the governance. Do we know where the analytics result should go? Who should have access to the analytic results? Again, that goes hand in hand with decision management. And then beyond that, you can see that the apologies, a little bit hard to read. Analytic workflow. For all these activities to be well coordinated and progress, you need proper analytic workflow. And then analytic culture. Again, it takes certain organizational change against organizational inertia, if you will, to become a data-driven decision-making organization. So proper analytic culture, and finally, analytic governance. That takes your data governance that you probably have in your organization one step further. Because now we are dealing with different kinds of information, additional kind of information with different kinds of implications of your actions. So that is the operational analytics journey. And I can point to the slides that you can download where for each item, we have fair amount of details of the description and some examples and the kind of enablers that you like to have in your organization to make your analytics journey successful. And wrap up.
If you could just stay here with me. So, I have a few ending comments, but let's see if anybody has any questions of Jung or myself before we get to the final wrap-up. So is there any questions out there in the audience? Yes.
I've noticed a challenge with these new systems, the desire to have it be all things to all people. That you had the nice little graph of showing of picking your users and exactly how it is. How do you have any advice for how to sort of bring that perspective to your organization?
Okay, I think I properly understood the first part of your comment. Help me understand the second part, what aspect you are looking for. By the way, my gut reaction, all things to all people, I hope I'm not speaking incorrectly, ain't gonna happen. But we can talk more about that. But yes, sorry, the second part of it.
Well, it's asking for advice on how to get around that mentality. So because these systems are so expensive and time consuming to implement, as you start implementing one, there's sort of a mission creep to have it become all things to all people. So how can we help the organization to keep each system more focused, even though if you imagine that you could be all things to all people, it seems like that's inefficient.
Right, right. Typically, we try to deal with that situation on three fronts. One is, even if we focused on the organizational design and the organizational aspects in today's presentation, technologies do matter. I didn't mean to imply technologies don't matter. They are important. So we always start with a well thought out flexible architecture, underlying architecture, where not only are we well prepared to bring in additional data sources of different kinds, different sizes, and at different frequencies. Oh, and by the way, also with different sensitivity levels, right? Access control. Certain information only Brett can access, certain information anybody can access, and so on. So flexible data integration architecture. On top of that, as we design the models, also we think about what kind of end user solution as well as integration architecture we need to think about so that we can remain flexible. So number one, start with well thought out flexible architecture. Number two, information governance, because one of the problems with all things to all people might be, again, how do you control, right? So well-established, you would want to lay a well-established governance layer on top of your architecture. And finally, the end-user solutions come into the picture. But this is, again, where I will take you to the first phase of understanding your business, knowing who your users are. So, yes, for a present user group, we got to design the right solution for the right experience. Right? But if you have the proper governance and architecture layers, as your organization either matures, evolves, or changes, you can continuously develop the right user solutions and continue to provide, hopefully, the right user experience. So, hopefully.
So let me just wrap up. I'll bring up one success factor that's personal to me, that I have a passion about. Jung has talked about it. You need to make sure the whole organization is prepared for what the data tells you. It is absolutely critical. We all go into an analytics project with an assumption of what we think the answer is going to be. and we'll be surprised that the answer is different, and everybody needs to be willing to accept and trust what the data says and act upon the data. I'll let you read the rest of those. And then just lastly, because we're running out of time, we talked about analytics assessment. We have handouts at our booth, so you can go do your own assessment. This is the detailed assessment. From that, you'll get emailed a detailed report about kind of where you lie in the maturity of analytics. So we encourage you to stop by the booth, grab a piece of this paper. You can do it on your phone with the QR code or go back to your desktop and type in the URL. But we encourage you to take your Analytics IQ, encourage your whole organization to take it, because it gets interesting when you hear where everybody in the organization feels that you're at. So we encourage you to do that, and we thank you very much for your time this morning.
Right.